Hey, Law.
Hey, what up,
Hello.
woman?
How
What's
are
going
you?
on? Finally,
Oh,
right?
finally made this happen. That's amazing.
Man, the background is giving me 1986 school photo vibes. You
That's
know
what
I
we're
know.
going for.
See,
Completely.
this is why I
Completely.
love y'all guys.
I miss
This is
those.
this is why I absolutely from the first time I got wind of who you were and what you were doing. This is why, because I knew this if it's going to be a podcast that I wanted to be on, it was going to be this one, on
Mhm.
all cylinders.
Oh man, that means a lot. Thank you. Dope Nostalgia, we're doing well. It's our second year. We're almost into our third and it's growing fast.
Awesome.
So I'm so happy
Awesome.
that you agreed to be a part of it. Thank you.
Are you very welcome, man? Because I love the work that y'all are doing out here. In times like these, we need things as a reminder, and especially, Nas always said nostalgic with the state of mind, but people didn't understand what he meant because it's things like this that remind you just how far you've actually come as an individual and collectively. So it's just it warms my spirit. I said, oh my God, those are my favorite movies. Like it's just, these are things that I talk about on a regular basis with my fans in general, and then even with my
Mhm.
friends still to this day. So
It's the stuff that made us, right? Made
yeah.
us who we are, what we enjoyed, and always fond memories. So thank you for that. And also, I want to make sure, am I calling you Law? I want to make
Yeah.
sure. Okay, sweet.
You call me Law.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure I got it right.
I go by so many variations these days, but laws will always be the standing definition of everything else because Lawrence and Law is the same guy anyway. So
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, welcome to Dope Nostalgia. I want to know about your roots, your musical beginnings, how everything started for you. Where did you grow up? Where did it all come from?
As you can see by the hats, I am
Mm-hmm.
definitely the pride of my hometown. Or as the legendary Ed Norton of the Honeymooners once said, I'm from the garden spot in the world, aka Brooklyn, USA, Albany Project, St. Mark's Avenue, Crown Heights, Brooklyn Hood boy, forever, without question. This is where it all started for me.
Excellent. And who were you listening to at the time you were growing up and developing your tastes?
Well, that's just the thing because, considering my legendary family already being in the business, rest in peace to my legendary grandfather, Blues Hall of Famer Sam Bluesman Taylor, and my late uncle Bobby Real Deal Taylor. My family was my Juilliard for music. So in the non-typical household of the Taylors and even the Worrells, you heard everything from the Ozzy Brothers to Spiral Gyra to Ambrosia to Kenny Loggins. Like we were, this was pretty much my upbringing up until heavy metal and hip hop came along. So everything of my roots in terms of gospel, my legendary uncle, the Reverend Charles Taylor. So that was already in my DNA. And then of course, because I started singing, my first audience besides my family was the church. I grew up Baptist Pentecostal before I became non-denominational. So we heard everything from the Hawkins family, the Winans family, even down to Sandy Patty and Amy Grant. That's how deep we were. Like we literally went from all avenues of every genre of music. That's why I say my family's my Juilliard for music because I was exposed to a lot in my household, and then considering all the traveling family members that I had, your distant cousins, you would go to their house. I heard the first reggae records being pressed up in Brooklyn before it became dance hall reggae. So it's like I grew up in the thick of all that. So this is my formative years from the ages of, let's say, 3 all the way till about 12 years old, which hence the name Planet 12. And I know we'll get into that later, but just that whole period was me constantly studying, hanging around the OGs, even down to my Brooklyn, my Brooklyn legends, the ones who my mother actually sang with: Brass Construction, Crown Heights Affair, Sky, Unlimited Touch. These are the cats that, or as we say, cats. These are the cats that raised me. So, on a lot of different levels, that's what it became for me. This really became a great thing for me.
And that's when you were soaking in all your influences and creating what you were going to do with your future, right?
Yeah.
So what was happening for you in the 90s as this podcast is very focused on that decade? What was going on?
In the 90s? Wow. This is why I love this podcast, because the 90s for me growing up in Brooklyn, because as everybody knows about our town, you know, we're very notorious on a lot of different levels. Y'all hear all the Biggie and Jay-Z songs, but what people fail to realize is that that's just them speaking from the perspective of what we already knew. But you have to live there to understand the type of shit that we were dealing with. So just more so in that we came up raw. So there's the street aspect, there's the dare to be different aspect, but still had to maintain a certain type of composure, because, you know, even though you love to laugh and smile, you couldn't afford to laugh and smile all the time, because there was a war going on a lot of different levels. While people were dealing with the Gulf War and their situation, there was a war on the streets in Brooklyn. You know, you had all the kids of my generation became the new age hustlers, and once, you know, the crack epidemic hit the streets, it changed the innocent of most young Black kids forever. Not just Brooklyn either. I mean, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island. That's why when you look at people like Nas and Wu-Tang, we all got the same story, just different avenue parts of it. And being that I've seen a lot of that up front growing up in between everything else. So music was always a safe haven for me on a lot of different levels, because I watched a lot of my friends get caught up in the street life, even family members as well. And the thing is that you make decisions according to that, where you knew you had to find your angle. You're not afraid of it, because I'm street all day, but I knew that this wasn't going to be my final destination. So God used music to save my life and to save me from the street. But in the 90s, outside of that, I was your typical Brooklyn kid, man. You know, we you know, everything for me was all about, you know, running home to watch Beverly Hills 90210, or you know, like certain things that were coming out, Batman, the animated series, you know, DuckTales, all that stuff. Like that stuff for me, you know. And then musically, forget about it. I say all the time, 80s was very, and this is my personal opinion, so people who will see this podcast, you can get mad. I really don't give a shit. You know, I don't care about any of that. Here's the thing. With all due respect to the eras that came before our eras, the 80s and especially the 90s, in my humble opinion, was the most diverse era for music. Even though the record labels played the demographic game, which is the reason why a lot of people thought that New Kids on the Block was a manufactured group, which we knew that they weren't. But, you know, to the world, we didn't have social media, so nobody knew the information and the history of New Kids on the Block as well as Vanilla Ice. So people were already making assumptions and putting these things on them without knowing the full details. All we know is what we saw in the interview, what they were told to say. So growing up in the 90s, it gave me a lot of freedom, because you got to remember, look at my dilemma. I'm a real singer that happens to be a real MC, that happens to be a real musician who can really dance. So think about my whole plethora. 1 minute it's Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots and Sonic Youth. Next minute it's Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas, Wu-Tang. In other cases, it's New Kids on the Block, you know, and there's some of the other groups, and of course, you know, your Boyz II Men, I always talk about the Boyz II Men, Jodeci, Silk, High Five era, because the same way how the stylistics and the dramatics, the Temptations was my mother's era of R&B. When it comes to R&B groups, this was our era. We finally had an era that 20 years from now we will be talking about. Hence the point why we're here now, because now we can talk about stuff from 20 to 25 years ago that's still resonating with all this resurgence of 90. I love the 90s tours, and all these guys are still out here. Well, most of them, all these guys are still out here kicking ass and touring and putting out new music, and we get to enjoy that part of it with them, because it's almost like it's nostalgic, but look at where we're still going. I mean, we still have a voice, and I always represent. That's why I created a page on my Facebook page called on one of my Facebook group pages is called 80s Baby 90s Kid, because I want to talk about the movies that we like, no matter how cheesy and corny or how predictable they were. We loved them anyway, whether it was Reality Bites, Can't Buy Me Love, even though that's late 80s. But to me, late 80s is still 90s, because that's the continuation of where we were going in that. When you look at movies like 3 O'Clock High and you know, like all that stuff that was coming out during that period. And then sitcoms. I mean, Married with Children. That's like in my number 3. As much as I love The Honeymooners, which is my number 1, but then we had a bunch of shows that us 90s babies and kids can gravitate towards too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
100%. 100%. I remember loving Cosby's as well as Full House.
Yes.
You know, these kinds of sitcoms, and then like Family Matters. All of that is just classic and important.
Thank God It's Friday, Channel 7, New York. You know, I know. That's why I was like, see what I mean? And the pure irony, because Darius McCrae, who plays Eddie Winslow, that's one of my very, very good friends. So
wonderful.
How interestingly enough, because people don't realize, I was a fan of Darius before Family Matters. I was a fan of Darius when he was in a movie called Big Shots, because he was 13 years old. You know why I love that movie? Because it reminded me a lot of me and my brother. Like, even though we played innocent in front of my mother's friends and most of the women in the neighborhood that knew us as the Taylor boys or the Taylor girls and all that stuff, you know, in the words of Britney Spears, we really weren't that innocent. I think we knew how to play nice when it came to that. So Big Shots reminded me of that. So how funny is, and then of course, Darius is an incredible singer. People don't know. His family, his family is famous in the industry too, like mine is. So we bonded very quickly. So it's funny you bring up Family Matters, Full House, all these amazing shows that still stand the test of time. Martin, I mean, to this day, I mean, look on VH1 and MTV. You're gonna laugh. I'm gonna let you know a little secret. A lot of my fans don't know this about me. I mean, they know it, but a lot of people, I never said it publicly before. Most of the time when I'm done in the studio working out or working on content or whatever the case may be, it could be 3 o'clock in the morning. The fastest way for me to fall asleep is when they show reruns of all the Martins and the Married with Children. I fall asleep real quick over an episode that I actually love, because there's a certain comfortability that lays in my brain while I'm sleeping. I'll be laughing in my sleep. I can literally hear the joke with my eyes closed. So.
Oh, that's nice. That's like a positive way to have some good dreams. And I definitely had a thing. I think I liked Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, probably even more so than Full House, because I was a little bit too, I was 14, 15, I guess, when Full House was coming out. So I was starting to see the cheesiness, but it was still good family television.
I mean, but that's the thing what made those shows so great, because, you know, whether they were white based or black based, you can easily relate to something. There's certain things in shows. I mean, even if we go back to some of the 80s shows like Facts of Life, I mean, that was probably one of the, especially for young women, that was one of the most diverse shows, because they had you got these 5 girls from all different walks of life. Yes. Which is crazy. And then they all relating into certain scenarios. Same thing with Different Strokes. Like, you had all these integrated TV shows that gave you the balance. And it's been criticized over the years, and they'll be like, oh, that wasn't believable. I said, well, you know what? Honestly, I don't really care if it was believable to one person or not, but it's something that if you're really in tune to who you are as a person, you related to these episodes. There were a lot of different things that you can pull from it, a lot of things you learned from it. You know, whether it was the whole Say No to Drugs campaign or serial rape, you know, a lot of different things that people were pretty much scared to talk about. And those were daring shows back then, because nowadays, you know, everything is just, here you go, reality TV show. We're going to put everything out there and we don't give a shit. It's so, back then it was an anticipation and knowing that those shows, you were going to either laugh your ass off or you were going to learn something in that paraphrase. And the same thing with Full House. I mean, whereas Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place, that was our soap operas.
That was just straight up good drama.
The same way how our mothers and our, some of our fathers did. I don't know. My father wasn't in the stories, but definitely my grandmother and my aunts. For some of our mothers and aunts who were into All My Children, Days of Our Lives, and General Hospital, that's what Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place was for us. Drama upon drama with a new way of looking at stuff. You know, it's just a lot of that. And then you can't forget probably my favorite #1 variety show of all time, because In Living Color, to me, I mean, no disrespect to Saturday Night Live, because Saturday Night Live is definitely important and it was funny, but In Living Color took it to a whole nother level because it's a Black-based show that had 2 white comedians where no one was safe. See, back then you could say whatever, you could make fun of people, and even though they would get offended, nobody really cared. Nowadays, you can't say shit anymore. You can't even, it's to a point, people are so sensitive now. You can't even get to a point, but back then, it was no holds barred. To this very day, those episodes are still, they still have me, like when Jim Carrey does Jimmy Swaggart, like that's Michael Bolton. I literally had tears in my eyes. When I need a good laugh and I'm not feeling at my best during the day, I will throw on either Looney Tunes box set, Pink Panther cartoon box set, or definitely the whole In Living Color or Martin or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I throw on any one of those things to cheer me up and to make me laugh, and honestly to get me throughout the day, because a lot of writing goes into what I do in terms of being a songwriter of multiple genres. And to be honest with you, those TV shows, and of course, you know, all the music from the 90s, whether it be grunge rock, alternative, R&B, hip hop, pop, boy band stuff, all that stuff influences a lot of my writing, and it sometimes helps dictate where I need to go for the matter of the song. So when a song comes up and it has a little bit of a New Kids, Backstreet, Boyz II Men kind of flavor, I kind of go with that. But if it's going into a Neil Young, Pearl Jam, Helmet, Korn direction, I go with that.
That's so cool. Like just the fact that you can go in any direction with the sounds. I like that a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Music diversity is sexy.
And the funk. How did you develop a relationship with the legend, George Clinton?
The funk. I mean, well, first and foremost, before we even get into the George Clinton part of it, let me just say that without question, even though I'm known for multiple genres, it's safe to say that many of my fans and people and supporters that know me, if they know, if nothing else, when they come to a law show, we can do all these different things, but the main things you're always going to get without question is the funk rock and the hip hop. So I take that proudly, and considering that I have legendary uncles in this genre, such as my legendary uncle Tony T. Funk Austin, who played with James Brown and Kool and the Gang. So I was raised in it. And then my legendary grandfather, though he was known for blues, his biggest success was with the 70s funk group BT Express, that were known for their hit Do It Till You're Satisfied, which was their million seller. And so it's in my DNA. So of course, Cameo, Earth, Wind and Fire, Gap Band, Mars Day and the Time, the Meters, the Ohio Players, you know, all that stuff is a huge part of how I create my sound. And when I play bass or guitar, definitely the creator of funk music, which is James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, who diversified the funk. And last but not least, coming to what you just said, George Clinton made funk religious. He is the reason why the genre is what it is today. He personified what funk is. So I met George, what was this? I'm gonna say 98, 97, because I told my mother at 12 years old, which was further back. I told my mother at 12 years old that I was going to become a part of the P-Funk Army, because my uncle gave me an album by Parliament called Mothership Connection. If you remember that album cover, it's a skinny George Clinton in his prime on top of a UFO in space. And on the back of that album cover, he's in the ghetto with the spaceship. See how that spoke to me? I'm very eccentric. I'm weird, but as everybody knows, I'm a Brooklyn hood boy who's hood as fuck. So I have all these different elements working for me, but it made sense because that's who George Clinton was. George Clinton is from Plainfield, New Jersey, and Newark and Brick City. That is the Brooklyn of Jersey. That's the hood. All those things I just mentioned, that's where Whitney Houston is from. That's why people couldn't understand when Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown were together. Everybody thought Bobby Brown is corrupting our princess. No, he isn't. Whitney, aka Nippy, is from East Orange, the hood, Brick City. That's where Faith Evans is from. That's where Redman is from.
Isn't Naughty from there?
Naughty by Nature, Illtown. That's why I think it's called Illtown. Illtown is the name of their section. See, people don't really understand those terminologies, but if you're from the street, you get it. The same way how I'm from Crown Heights, but we call it Crime Heights because for obvious reasons. you know, or Brown, or where Mike Tyson's from, Brownsville, never ran, never will. So in any event, I told my mother, because I was getting real deep into Parliament Funkadelic, because I said to myself that with the exception of my two main idols, who was Prince and Stevie Wonder, and of course, you know, without question, Michael Jackson and the rest of the Jackson brothers as well. I knew that George Clinton was the one guy that would totally understand the musical chaos that was going in my mind at that time. Because like we said earlier, but by the time I was 12, I was already listening to Frank Zappa, Jefferson Airplane, the Doors, the Mamas and the Papas, the Beach Boys. You know, like I was listening to a lot of, I had a wide range taste of music for a kid my age. And then me being an 80s baby coming into being a 90s kid, that was a pretty strange transition. I mean, my friends couldn't understand how much I love Led Zeppelin the way I love Run DMC and the Fat Boys. So, I mean, it pretty much laid the reach. So we look at somebody like George Clinton, people call him the godfather of funk, but George was deeper than that. Remember, George Clinton produced the first Red Hot Chili Peppers album. A lot of people don't know that, unless you were real.
No, I did not.
Yeah, Freaky Styley. Freaky Styley. That's the first album. You gotta remember, Red Hot Chili Peppers, very much like No Doubt, very much like Fishbone and Living Color and Bad Brains. Those are all descendants of Parliament Funkadelic. Why? Because Parliament Funkadelic is the first known and established heavy metal black band. Because you got to remember, at that time, remember, and I say this respectfully, you know, even though music is for everyone, it's universal, but without question, unapologetically, we as Black people created what we know today as rock and roll. Yes. Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, the blues, that all continuation. So when the early 70s came about, after Hendrix died and you know, Funkadelic was still relatively underground, there was this whole thing there in the middle of all this where now all these British rock groups dominated. So that's why a lot of people synonymize rock and roll with white bands, because all these white bands who studied the black bands, they became who they became. You know, I mean, you hear it all the time, especially the Rolling, those are my heroes, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and the Animals and Cream and all those groups from the late 60s, and then Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Vanilla Fudge. I know I'm missing a few right now, but just more so, all that whole era was because they were getting the attention. Meanwhile, you had a group like the Ozzy Brothers, who were known for their funk R&B stuff, but they're rock and roll too, because Ernie Ozzy is one of the deadliest rock and roll funk guitarists that ever could be. So my thing is that, thank God that those guys were selling records, because if we didn't have those guys selling records, people would just automatically think that rock and roll is purely a white thing, and it really wasn't. So George Clinton, here comes George Clinton, the first one to have what we call the mohawk, the first one to cut the size of his head. Yeah, I mean, that's the Indian hairstyle, but he's the first one to have that, what would be personified by punk rock. Oh, George Clinton was already diving. This is before the 70s. George Clinton was already half naked on stage. He was stage diving when it wasn't popular. This is George Clinton. So George Clinton is definitely the man who pretty much had that together. So when you look at Lenny Kravitz and Prince and Fishbone and Red Hot Chili Peppers and all those guys studied the blueprint of Parliament Funkadelic and added their own thing to it. Like we all do. Everybody gets something from somebody. No idea is original. What we do is that we learn from who did something first, and then we take that and then we add our layers to it. We add different things to it. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, you see, what does Donnie always say? If it wasn't for New Edition is the modern day boy band blueprint. There would be none of us if it wasn't for that. So my thing is that when you recognize what it is, it can never be anything more than that. So meeting George Clinton around the time I got out of college was probably one of the greatest moves ever. And there's a longer story to that, but I don't want to take up that time to tell that. So I'll give you the shorter version. In hindsight, we met a couple of times because he was playing at this legendary place in New York City called Wetlands. But every time I tried to get with him and tell him how much the Funkadelic albums mean to me and what he meant to me, everybody wants to smoke with him. So it's just like, shit, I can't get no one-on-one conversation. Hey, George, you want to smoke? You want to? And I get it. You know, look, George is like the cool uncle that in your family that you always want to hang with, that you can smoke weed with and nobody would get mad. I don't smoke, but I'm just saying, my brothers and them do. So the thing about this was that would be that cool ass uncle that you can hang out with that wouldn't tell your mother that you were smoking weed and sipping some wine or some champagne or some liquor. George is that guy. That's why you think all the hip hop people love him? Why you think George is like the big uncle and father figure to all of the hip hop and rock and roll generation? Even the new trap guys love George Clinton because they see a lot of themselves in him because George is such a free form thinker. So that time wouldn't happen. I end up going to Atlanta courtesy to an incredible friend of mine by the name of Sarah Tragar. I had never been to Atlanta, so I was working on my stuff because I figured I'm like, I ain't gonna never get a conversation with George. But you know what? When the time is right, See, God's timing is not our timing, and that's what people gotta understand.
True.
And wouldn't you know, a year later, I'm in Atlanta, I'm working on music, I'm jamming, and something told me, turn around. This is some real spooky shit. Turn around. There's George Clinton standing in the damn doorway, bopping his head like this. I don't know if did you ever watch Charlie Murphy's Hollywood Stories on Dave Chappelle? Did you ever watch the Rick James thing? You know that part when he says that when he saw Rick James, there's like an orange aura around him. That's what it was with George. It was like, I can't believe it. And we sat there, we talked. His session was after mine. So he wanted me to stay because he saw me playing this stuff. He said, "Oh, you play?" I said, "Done." So I ended up playing on a Parliament record. I don't know which record it is because, as you know, we have over a gazillion recordings. George Clinton records frequently. He still has 400 real tapes that haven't been released yet.
Oh,
so
unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the whole thing is, we did that. Went back to my room. My friend Sarah called me the next morning and says, "Hey, Law, when was your flight supposed to leave?" I was supposed to leave the next day to go back to New York. And he's like, well, she was like, "Well, you know what? Your flight is afternoon, but cancel that flight." I'm like, "What do you mean?" "I let George hear your demo when I took him back to his hotel, and he flipped. He wants you to come and stay with him right away and work on some stuff for him and his granddaughter." And the rest, they say, is history. Not only did George became the guy that paid me my first major industry check as a producer, which was over $6,000. And you got to remember, at that time for me, as in the late 90s and early 2000s, I was making my way through the industry because I had been signed to entertainment. That was the most money that I had seen for me as a producer. So get that in mind. Keep that in mind. I'm doing all these shows in New York. I'm paying my dues. I'm kicking ass. And my idol, the man who I wanted to meet, besides Prince and Stevie Wonder, who I did meet, besides the man who I wanted to meet, actually gave me my value and my worth. So we're still close to this day. As you see, when we hang out, we do shows every now and then in between. If I'm not doing my own stuff and I happen to be in the vicinity, he can call me up on stage at any given time and I stay ready. And then he usually joins us with 420 Funk Mob when we do other shows outside of Parliament Funkadelic. So
wow.
Long live George Clinton.
What an amazing story, like how it all came together.
God's
Fantastic.
plan. God's plan. You can speak it into existence. That's why I tell people all the time, speak your dreams. Don't ever give up on your dreams. I'm definitely living. I mean, as you know, the George Clinton story is just one of many. So we'll get through that as we keep on talking and stuff. But
sure.
but it's definitely the main thing I always use, because the moral of that story is not only don't give up on your dreams, but also some things won't be placed upon the value of money. Because here's the thing I left out. Sarah told me that he was going to pay me. I never said what. I didn't get up on my thing like, I need such and such to do this. Like, cause at that time, people were just trying. This is the middle age part of hip hop. This is the mid 90s to late 90s to early 2000s. So a lot of producers, and hip hop was even bigger than it was when it first came out. So a lot of producers were demanding their worth. You got Master P. You got Master P. I had that. Well, Master P was taking over the game. Then Cash Money came out. All the West Coast independents like E40 and Too Short were creating their own value and their worth. So here's me in a situation. My idol wants me to produce for him and his granddaughter, and he said he's going to pay me. Now, what if I would have been on some egotistical shit and been like, well, he has to pay me so much, so I don't care who he is. Nope. I heard God say to me, take the ticket to Florida and go. First of all, the fact that they were taking care of my flight, that was enough for me. They put me, and I get to live with them. I lived with George Clinton for damn near 3 months in the house in Tallahassee.
I can't see how anybody would expect more than that at that time. Like it's what an honor just to
Yeah,
like that's a
exactly.
life honor that you want to like immerse yourself in. So
Yeah. So,
you're
so
right.
the moral of that, I was going to say, and thank you for saying that, because the moral of that is that some things won't be monetary, but here's the flip side to that. But some things will lead you to the money. I remember
Yeah.
commerce. It's still very much a thing. So the thing about this is that what I've learned to this very day, I kid you not. Now, of course, with certain things, yes, the check must be cleared before I step on stage, before I do anything else. But there are a lot of other things where I'll sit down and assess a situation, and if that person is talking right and it makes sense, and we can negotiate, some things can happen. You know, not to say I won't do anything for free or anything like that, but I've learned that some opportunities are golden. But see, I've been in this business long enough to know which opportunities are that
You
and
got
which
a
ones
way out every
aren't.
situation.
You got to always know. So the main thing about me, you know, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. I trust in God. I trust in my faith will lead me. And can I be honest with you? Every single time that I've trusted him is the reason why you see the career that I have, you know, and the people who I've worked with or who you see me with and things like that. Those were all God divine decisions. Hey, Lord,
Blessings.
get on that plane. Get on that plane and go to LA. Get on that plane. You never know. You just might end up working with Ray Parker Jr. And the second day I got there, I'm in Ray Parker Jr.'s multi-million-dollar home working on music with my heroes. Who would have ever thought? But that's such a leap of faith. If I would have just stayed home and been all depressed and mad and secretly being told, I don't really talk too much about my private life, but I will say this publicly because I trust you so much. I was going through a separation divorce at that time. So imagine my mental at that moment. I could have stayed home and just sulked in my chair like how I'm doing now talking to you. I could have sulked and did that, but something in my spirit said, Law, book a flight to LA. It's your second hometown. You haven't been there in a minute. There's some relationships that you need to reestablish. And boy, was God ever so right. Whew. That's all I can say about that. So I want to just pinpoint the moral of that George Clinton stories. I tell a lot of artists now about, you know, some things won't always be for money. Even the older artists, a lot of older artists, they have that mentality and they're set in their way. And I ain't mad at them. Some people just ain't with it. But I've been known to carefully, strategically pick the right opportunities that would make sense for my brand that won't involve money. But then it'll be that one thing that will lead me to an opportunity to make some money.
God will put you where you need to be.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
That's true. 100%.
I love it.
Then I was so happy to hear about the fact that you had 7 Grammy nominations for your work.
Yeah.
Now, I could ask you how that feels, and I know the answer already. Like, it's going to be incredible, right? But what does that, what does that do for you as an artist, as a producer going forward once you have those nominations? How does things grow from there?
Well, I mean, thank God I made it on the list because I was at the bottom of the main nominees. For those who don't know how the Grammys work, because you know it's been televised for so many years, so a lot of the average fans don't know how the system works because there are a lot of nominees in each category, but you're going to only see the top 5 or 6, and they're mostly by the design of major record labels. Now, of course, over the last 20 years, there have been more indie people popping up on there, establishing those destinies. But it feels good to be nominated and considered for anything, for one. But here's the thing I want to point out to people, and I'm going to make this very clear. Grammys do not validate artistry. So do understand, some of our greatest eclectic, incredible, kick-ass, mega dope artists and musicians have not won a Grammy.
That's
George
true.
Clinton has a lifetime achievement Grammy, but he didn't win a Grammy for any of the groundbreaking stuff that he did, like Maggot Brain and One Nation Under a Groove. And then you got who else? And then you got people like Jimi Hendrix never won a Grammy. You know, you would think on the levels of that. That's why I screamed when my incredible big sis, the great Layla Hathaway, who is the daughter of the legendary Donnie Hathaway, when she got 4 to 5 consecutive Grammys in a row each year. And what was the last one she got? That was the biggest Ice on the cake, she won one redoing her father's song, Little Ghetto Boy, because Donnie Hathaway, as we all know, next to Stevie Wonder, musical genius who should have had his Grammys back in the 70s. And he was never really given that due, even though everybody in the industry knew how mega dope and how badass Donnie Hathaway was. He didn't get that kind of recognition. So I felt like seeing Layla win was her getting all the Grammys that her father didn't get. So in situations like that, that's when the Grammys do have a point of merit. But make no mistake about it, because God forbid if I never win a Grammy, I'm still validated by the industry. My resume speaks for itself. So at the end of the day, I'm not sitting here worrying about validation. I mean, even on Instagram, everybody talk about, when you gonna get your blue check? I said, motherfucker, I get green checks. How about that? Green checks. Fuck a blue check. Blue check don't mean nothing. Blue check means nothing if you're not getting green checks, and I get green checks. So my thing is that they decide to validate me, and that's cool. But other than that, I'm not worried about a blue check. Let me get a green check.
Awards are nice, but they're not a validation in any way.
No. Well, you can't allow it to be, because in this industry, see, here's what people don't understand about me. And over the years, there was a lot of confusion with fans, certain people, and this is how severely too much in tune we are to social media, because one would see my posts, which I really kind of use it as inspiration to inspire other artists, that you don't need a major record label to make things happen or to make a wave in this industry. But some people saw it as me being arrogant or conceited. Oh, he's full of himself. I said, no, that's what you think, because you're very insecure. And you apparently haven't learned that in this industry, when you're your own marketing team, you have to build yourself up. When I first came into this game as a youngin', remember, my first professional gig was 7. I was your typical young Brooklyn kid. I'm smiling, I'm happy, I'm dancing, I'm having fun. I'm getting around all these record label people at 12 years old, and I'm being humble and nice. And unfortunately, it got me no fucking place. When I realized that it wasn't getting me no place, I had to become so confident in who I was and what I brought to the table. And my biggest inspiration for that, well, actually 2 of them, was James Brown and Muhammad Ali, because these are 2 men, 2 incredible, iconic men that named their own monikers. We call Muhammad Ali the greatest, but you gotta remember, Muhammad Ali was the one that called himself the greatest. And they call him everything from the Louisville Olympics. And that boy don't never shut up. He has a big mouth. I hope Sonny Liston punch him in his mouth. He talks too damn much. He talks a lot. He knew, he's like, people say I talk too much, but if y'all want to lose your money, be a fool and bet on Sonny. And of course, as we all know, he had rhymes for days. He's like, I'm telling you, if Muhammad Ali didn't make it as a boxer, he damn sure would have been a rapper in the later years if he would have came out during the 80s and the 90s. Float like a butterfly, sing like a bee, your eyes can't hear what your eyes can't see. Because he knew how great he was. No matter how much shit he was talking, he backed it up for the most part, even though, he lost a few matches. But for the early part, them early years, like him and Mike Tyson, them early years of their careers, they was talking that shit and backing it up. James Brown, he had like how many names? The Godfather of Soul, the hardest working man in show business, Mr. Dynamite, Mr. Please, 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 the Minister of Super New Heavy Funk. He named all these things because he wanted to keep the legacy of the moniker going. So when me and my DJ sat in the room one day, we was like, yo, we need to take it back to the old school where the legendary guys would use their own monikers and create their own. So I need one for me. And we went through a whole bunch, and that's when my DJ came up with my moniker, which is the most talented kid in the music biz. So you needed confidence to push that, because I was scared of it. I said, no, I'm not sure about that. He said, but Lord, look, man, nobody does what you do. You got people that try to do what you do, but it ain't you. You're a real MC, real singer, you're all that. So I'm like, you know what? Let's start pushing that narrative. So of course, it was met with resistance in the beginning with some people, but we kept going. So now you look at my pages, you see how people refer to me, see how the fans call me out. They call me by my moniker if they don't call me by my name. But that comes with confidence. You have to know who you are. So when I put up these posts, it's to inspire and to help someone else that may want to start a business, not even just music, just fashion industry, whatever they choose to want to do in life. I want to inspire them and show them that you're not going to get to where you need to get to being just weak and humble. I save my humility for off stage. When I'm off stage, I'm chilling with the fans. You probably seen me. I hang out with the fans. I take pictures. We crack jokes to the end of the night. You know, I make sure that if some of the female fans got too drunk, I put them in the cab and make sure they get back to their hotel because mama raised me right. So for me, it's like people don't see that side. So it's not to brag or to boast. It's really just to kind of let people know that that's me on stage. When I'm on stage, yes, I am that motherfucker without question. I am. But when I'm off stage, I'm a people person. I'm the same Brooklyn Hood boy that loves his Chinese food and pizza, that will stay in a hotel room and play video games if the after party is whack. That's me. Like I've been like that since I was 13, and now here in the stage of where I'm at now, I'm still that way. So I try to inspire people with these posts and let them know about confidence and how to get to where to get to. If I would have just stayed meek and nice and humble and okay, I really don't want it, I ain't gonna get nowhere.
Yeah, you aren't gonna get it.
You ain't gonna get anywhere.
I've seen that happen to, even just from my experiences being in a rock band throughout my 20s and 30s. It was like, if I kept putting everybody ahead of myself, I wasn't going to get anywhere. And I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. I mean, and those are lessons learned, because the one thing about this industry, it will teach you, and that's the one thing. See, the thing about me, and again, not to brag, because of who I am, and of course, I'm a bona fide Scorpio. And if you know anything about Scorpio energy, we pick up on things very quickly before most people do. And I learned this early. That's why I knew at 12 and 13 years old, as I was creating this Planet 12 thing, the whole key was diversification, because I knew that if I just called myself an R&B artist, all I'm gonna get is R&B. If I called myself just a hip hop artist, I'm gonna be stifled and pigeonholed. And a lot of my friends didn't understand that. And record labels were trying to say, well, you need to be one thing. You need to, we can't market you because you do all these different things and we can't market you, which was bullshit, because once Outkast and the Roots and Alicia Keys came out, and then of course, later on, Bruno Mars, that proved my point even more. I'm like, I love the comparisons. I said, well, me and Bruno's cut from the same cloth. Y'all surprised, I'm not. I said, because I knew it would take someone like him. We're from the same caliber. I did 2 shows with Bruno Mars. We were on the same bill with each other. And I made sure I let him know. This is when he was starting to get really big. I let him know. I said, dude, you are a definite reason why I can continue. Because I got years on Bruno. But the thing is that we cut from the same cloth. He could have easily went with a corny ass pop album. But he said, you know what? Let's do some Blue Magic stylistic type stuff. With Leave the Door Open. Leave the Door Open is nothing but a 70s song in this present time. That's all it is to me. See what I'm saying? Skate, all those, that whole Silk Sonic project is straight up 70s funk with a new twist on every level. These guys understand the purpose of songwriting. So I say again, when I was creating Planet 12, that's the type of musical world that I wanted to see. I wanted to see when a white girl like Tina Marie, who's classically trained, but she sings R&B soul like no other, thank God she had a career, because she could have got pigeonholed too. And then, I couldn't stand when other people were telling people, well, you're a white girl from Nashville. You should be singing country music. They told Bruno that shit too. You know that, right? They told Bruno because, Bruno's Puerto Rican. And at that time, this is when the Ricky Martin and the John Cicada, that whole Latin explosion thing was happening. And they were telling Bruno, this is Motown, they were telling Bruno, yeah, well, why don't you do like the Latin pop thing? And Bruno was laughing. He's like, don't get me wrong, I love those artists, but that's not really the vibe that I'm on. And if I was to be on that vibe, I would do it a little bit differently than what those people are doing. But they didn't get it. And they dropped Bruno Mars from the label. I know they probably kicking themselves in the ass right now. They dropped Bruno. How you drop Bruno Mars from the record label? But people don't know. That's why I've always continued my journey, because my journey, just like your journey is your journey. You learn. But I'm thankful to God that I didn't have to learn too much stuff the hard way. Like I caught wind very early, and one of my greatest weapons was the fact that I knew music business. Keyword: music business. 2 words put together, but totally separate, because it's 90% business and 10% is the music. And at 14 and 15 years old, when you know everything about publishing and royalty exchange and making sure you're cutting the cost by doing most things on your own and letting them do distribution, the labels ain't going to want to sign you. We going back to the 90s now. This is me in the mid 90s. They didn't want to sign me because I did everything in the studio. I produce all the music. I write all the songs, you know, very much like D'Angelo, Prince, a lot of other people who are fit in that category. And that means I get most of the majority of the share. They didn't want that because they already have to deal with their quota most of the time. Yeah. They want to keep you, they want to keep you bankrupt, but they want to keep you under their thumb. So when I realized the industry wasn't grabbing at me too much, with the exception of a few people that definitely looked out for me and helped me along the way, the majority of the industry was not trying to hear someone like LAW. They wasn't trying to hear me. So I had to make myself a valuable commodity to prove my point. And thank God for the wedding gig industry, because Element Music and Starlight Orchestras, they saved my career. And what they did was they allowed me to transform their industry, because I didn't realize when I got in, Mary Ann Bennett, who's my agent, my longtime friend and sister, CEO of the company that I work for called Element Music, they told me, we've been looking for a guy like you forever. I'm like, what? Y'all mean you're telling me I have nobody here that can sing, rap, dance, and jump on instruments occasionally? I'm being real. I'm asking. I'm like, for real? See, that shows you my humility, because even though I am who I am, I knew I wasn't the only one that did all that stuff. Because first of all, look at Prince and Stevie Wonder. Those are my two main heroes. So I knew there had to be others like me or like Bruno that did the same stuff we did. But at that time in the wedding gig industry in New York City, there wasn't that. So I became the first of my kind. So look how God works. And 20-something years later, I still do corporate events. I have shows booked all the way in 2025. And that has nothing to do with the Planet 12 stuff. So to anchor your point again, to say it again, sometimes you can learn the hard way, but as long as you learn, that's the main thing I wanted to say. Like sometimes knowledge is priceless, and you got to stay forever learning and stay forever teachable. People call me a master, and I'm like, okay, I'll take that pound in the back only because of the work that I put in. But make no mistake, I'm forever a student. I learn something new every day about the business that I'm in, and even just the aspects of my talent. So thank you for saying that.
I like that phrase, stay teachable.
Yeah, you have to.
Stay teachable. I don't like when people think that they know it all.
No, and it's crazy because that's what I love this conversation, because that was how everybody treated me. They treated me like, oh, he's a Mr. No. That's Stevie Wonder's song. He's Mr. Know-It-All. And it wasn't that. It was because I was so knowledgeable about my own history that we were experiencing in the 80s and the 90s. But because of who my family is, I knew about the 60s, 50s, 70s, and the early 80s. So a lot of the older musicians were intimidated by me. They didn't like me. A lot of them didn't like me. It was like, oh, this kid thinks he knows everything. And it wasn't about me knowing everything. It was because I was always studying. And to me, that is the reason why I have the career that I have. Because again, like I said earlier, if I would have limited myself to just R&B and gospel and my funk roots and my hip hop roots, if I didn't expand and get into jazz or get into classical music like Bach and Brahms and Beethoven, or get into new age like Yanni, I got into all that stuff because I wanted to dig deeper as a producer. And in my personal opinion, you know, there are a lot of great producers in all genres of music, but to me, a great producer is someone who is a fan of the artist, number one, but number two, has the exploration of how to use instrumentation around them. That's why Quincy Jones is the greatest producer in pop music history. Not because he produced Michael Jackson. Go back to Quincy's history when it came to Ray Charles and jazz combos and Latin stuff. Go back to the early stuff before he got into funk and pop R&B of the 80s.
He was already doing so much before Michael Jackson came along.
Yeah, people don't realize that sometimes. Like Quincy is the quintessential producer that every producer should want to strive to be like, because he can tell the guy, no, I want the French horn on this one. No, play the oboes a little bit more lower than this. Every producer can't do that. And I want to be the guy to be able to say, to dictate. That's why the musicians, when I do shows with other musicians, when I'm just being the front guy and not jumping on instruments, the musicians love me because I can talk to them in their language. I play the instruments, I know. So I can turn them out to a bass player and say, on this song, for the feel, I want less Larry Graham and more James Jamerson. Now, if you're a real bass player, you already know what that means.
You know what you're talking about?
Then you can give me some, then you can give me some Jetty Lee. I'm a Rush fan. I'm a huge Rush fan. So it's like, then you can give me some of that prototype sort of bass playing, or David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. Like we can get deeper into those realms if you know music the way I know. But that's not me being a snob. That's just me being knowledgeable of who I am. But even to this day, with all that I know, and that's a lot of years of knowledge, because I do know a lot, but I learn something new every day. I still watch documentaries. I still watch interviews for clues. I know the Bee Gees' whole history, but there were some things I didn't know until I watched the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, again, remain teachable. I'm the first person to say, you know, I didn't know that. Wow, that's deep. Like, and I really mean, I'm like, if I didn't know something, I'll be the first to admit I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that insecure issue in me. So for me, I don't have that pride or that ego to make it feel like, I think you know, because a lot of people had that issue.
Yeah.
That's why now you understand why the record labels couldn't stand me in meetings, because I would go to meetings, they'd be like, well, Lord, you got to do this sort of thing. And I said, Alicia Keys didn't do that. Well, Alicia Keys, well, Outkast didn't do that either. They have 3 #1 records in a row. They would get mad because every time they tried to bring up something, I had to counter. They didn't like that.
You can still be a confident human being without being closed off to and being vulnerable and being able to
Amen.
Say, hey, I got that wrong. You know,
Amen.
we all gonna get something wrong once in a while. It's okay to admit it.
First of all, that's part of being a real adult. And me as a real man, I am the first person, when I am wrong and I didn't recognize it, I will apologize and say that I'm sorry, because that's what real men do.
Thank goodness.
You know? That's what real men do. I don't see, for me, I'm all masculine man, but I'm pro-woman. So for me, in the realm of relationships and things of that nature, because no one in any industry has it harder than women, especially Black women.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what it is. But women overall, and no greater example has been shown than what we're dealing with now. And I'm not going to go into that, but we already know.
Yeah.
That clearly shows you, in the words of the great Michael Jackson, they really don't care about us.
It's I can't even
explain
my feelings and thoughts.
I've been on a tirade. I've been blocking people. I've been unfriended. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like when it gets, because keep in mind, as most of my fans know, and as you probably may well know, I am a father of 4 children. 3 of them are girls. So my girls, I mean, I love my son to death too, but you know, of course, you know what they say, father's daughter, you know, that's daddy's little girl, that sort of thing. Not to mention, I have a granddaughter who's turned 3. So
nice.
For me, it's going to always be a win-win on this situation. And that's the way that my mother raised me. That's not saying that women can't be wrong and out of their minds sometimes too, because we all are. We all are.
Yeah, we are all human.
We're all, say it again, we're all human. That's right. So,
yeah.
But the sensitivity part of who I am, I make sure that it's understood. That's why I have an amazing relationship with my daughters, because no matter how many, and we rarely had disagreements, but I've always took time to really understand them going into womanhood. Because remember, I'm a man, I'm the father, but they're mothers who are incredible mothers. You know, they're mothers and that sort of thing. And then my aunts and my own mother, who I'm very close to, as most people know, that reminds me every single time on why I am who I am as a man standing up for women. So when decisions like this is made by our supreme government, if you want to call it that, because there's nothing supreme about our court system at this point, and never has been, if you want to be honest. You know, it's not showing any of that. So I fear for the future. And I hope, you want to hope and pray that things can change and overturn. But as we all know, because of the way the system was built and the infrastructure, it's a process, a very long one, and I'm not holding my breath. This is the way it's been since America's Inception, which, by the way, is my new single coming out in a week or so.
Oh, we're going to get to that. Absolutely. We have to talk
we're
about
going to get to that. I know we got a lot to talk about. We're going to get to that, but go ahead.
I'm excited about that. But when you're talking about things that are challenging right now in the US, I mean, I'm up here in Canada and seeing everything from you know, we kind of we're seeing everything from our viewpoint. And it's easy for a Canadian maybe to just sit up here and judge what's going on down there if they're not living it. But we have our own challenges here that we need to address.
Oh, I know.
So,
most of my biggest fans are Canadian, not to mention a lot of my close friends. So I'm updated a lot on various levels of what y'all guys go through. That's why every time when one of my friends from Canada call, I'll pray with them. I'll just be like, you know what? I'll just try to keep you try to keep you sane in this crazy world, especially what we had to deal with the last couple of years with the pandemic and everything. So
Yeah.
It's important. So I know the stuff that Canada goes through.
Have you been here?
Yeah, I've been there. Actually, you'll laugh. It's funny you mentioned George Clinton because
Mhm.
my first and my last show in Canada was with George.
Oh,
That was
wow.
back in damn. Wow. That was what, 2000? Yeah, 2000, 2001.
Oh, it's been so long.
It's been too long, but thank God for MySpace going back. Thank God for MySpace because before Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all that shit became what it became, when I started noticing that most of my fans were coming from Canada, it was just very interesting to me that I hadn't been out there in a long time. So with time, that audience grew. So imagine when I go, if I plan to go and do, which I am working on right now, imagine when I go plan to do a show in any part of Canada. That's going to be a whole lot of people showing up that have been waiting to come and see me live, in their vicinity. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. I'm out west. So if you're coming out west, we'll get hooked up and meet each other. That'd be nice.
Oh, you kidding me? Hell yeah. That's a given after this great conversation. You better believe it. Absolutely.
Now you have a relationship over the years too, with New Edition, with NKOTB.
Yes.
And I know have you gone to the MixTape Tour shows yet?
Oh yeah, I've been to 3 of them, and my 4th one will be next week. Donnie made sure of that.
Good. I was so blessed.
That's what big brothers are for.
I mean, as you saw, because you were seeing our Instagram live from San Francisco when we were lost.
Y'all was cruising. Y'all, as we say in Brooklyn, y'all was cruising for a bruising.
Pretty much. We were completely lost and having the time of our lives. But that was a good time because we got to see, I got to see 3 of the MixTape Tour shows. I had 3 VIP experiences where I got to finally meet Donnie and everybody. And it was unreal. Donnie Wahlberg is an enigma of a human being. He's just so loving and real,
I get emotional.
How'd you guys get that relationship? And you might be possibly collaborating on something?
Not possibly, it's happening.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
I'm just not giving a whole lot of details, but the fans know.
That's fair.
It's happening. No, but the fans know it's happening because we made it public, and the things that have been building for so long. But before I even get to my relationship with Donnie and Danny and even with New Edition, let me just say this, because the same way I talk about Prince and Stevie Wonder, and Michael and Lionel Richie, who's another close friend of mine as well. You got to understand something. Though Prince, Stevie Wonder, Jimi Hendrix, James Brown, Force MDs, and a few other notables were my heroes, they were all adults. I'm still a kid. I won my first talent shows imitating Michael and Prince. So even though that worked well in my favor for me, continuing out through New York City, doing talent shows and battling on the streets and stuff like that. And when I wasn't battling, I was singing in church. New Edition became the direct influence that I needed to see. You know why? Because they look like me. Even though they're a few years, they're some years older than me, but you gotta remember, we dress the same way, and we all project boys. We from the street, we from the hood. If you look at that Candy Girl video, that's the way we dressed in 83, 84. I was a young shorty then. I was about 7 when they were like 15 and 13, 14 years old. But that's the thing. Seeing kids that look like me, that were singing and doing all this stuff and popping and locking the way we were as kids, it spoke directly to me. Because you gotta remember, even though those primary influences that are adults, it's not believable or tangible for a kid between the ages of 6 and 10 until they see somebody else doing it. You dig what I'm saying? So at that particular time, we were dealing with the emergence of the boy band factor, the modern day boy band factor. Let me correct that. So of course, naturally, there's New Edition. There's Menudo, because I love Menudo too. Robbie Rose is one of my good friends as well. And then of course, right after that, New Kids on the Block. And then in the centerpiece, as the 90s came along, Boyz II Men,
Mhm.
Jodeci, even though they're not necessarily boy bands, but because of the influence of New Edition, all the other R&B groups that came before them, we can classify them as boy bands, even though Jodeci and Boyz II Men are not necessarily boy bands. But
even if it's a vocal harmony group, it's the idea of, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Troop, High Five, Shy, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Old Town, you name it, and some were better than others. I'll leave it at that. But but more so just in the reference of that. So imagine your mother winning first place at the Apollo Theater, and it just so happens that you get to stay for the entire show because your mom won first place. And there's these 5 white kids that come out. I was there. The
first time they played at the Apollo?
I was there. Yeah.
That's an incredible thing.
I'm only about 9 or 8. And of course, as you've seen very much, that infamous clip, when they came out, they were on album number 2 at that time. So this is Hanging Tough was not the phenomenon it would become yet. They were still being marketed, as you know, they were still being marketed to the Black audience because that was the majority of their audience. People don't realize that. Vanilla Ice, same thing. Vanilla Ice played for nothing but Black crowds for 3 years before he even got signed. He never dreamed of playing for a pop white audience because Vanilla Ice was not a pop rapper. New Kids on the Block is not a pop group. They became a pop group by default because of the situation, but they are a white R&B hip hop group. So they come out, y'all know, white boys. That was what you heard. And, I was blown away because I'm like, yo, okay, these white kids is dope. That little Joey Mac. That's why I look at that. That's why when I look at Griffin, I've been hanging out with Griffin the last couple of shows. We've been hanging out backstage with each other. I got a chance to finally kick it with Griffin. That little kid is his father all over again, man. I told him that in front of Joey. So I'm like, he's like, yeah, right. I said, man, I kept pointing, like, I was starting to get emotional. I'm like, that's you all over again, man. As a father myself, I can relate to that. I start looking at my daughters and stuff when they do certain things. I'm like, yep, that's me. So the thing is, after that show, I begged my mother to go to the Wiz. Remember the Wiz? Sam Goody?
Yes.
Remember Blockbusters? Come on. I mean, we used to go to these places where you would get the actual music and it's tangible. And I begged my mother to buy the Hangin' Tough cassette. And just the same way how New Edition influenced me, New Kids had their own influence on me. So who would have thought some odd 25, 30 something years later that my dream of not only meeting, not only hanging, but now working with my idols, me and my brother, my older brother, Casino Chip, shout out to Chip. We were living in Arizona at that point with my grandfather, going to a school called Choya High in Tucson, which was predominantly white and Mexican. And there were some Blacks there too as well. So imagine 1990 and me and my brother, and mind you, I'm dark brown, my brother's even darker than me. Imagine us walking through the hall, singing the steps in Step by Step.
I love that. My
older brother is Danny. That's why me and Danny have this relationship, because that hardcore street aspect, that's who Danny is, in case you didn't know. Reminds me a lot of my older brother. Same thing with me too, but of course, he's the revered big brother.
He was a break dancer.
I know. Come on now.
Yeah.
Look, that's a whole nother history, deeper level, but just, Danny, Jordan, and Donnie, certified break dancers without question. So their influence, just like New Edition was on me, hands down, bar none. So who would have ever thought that I would end up meeting Donnie, which by the way happened through Jimmy Marsh, because I was already into Jimmy as an MC. So never once did I think, because I knew I would meet him. I knew I would meet them one day, because Donnie and Jordan are my top 2 favorite New Kids members, obviously, because Jordan for just, the influence on my falsetto scenes. I'm known for my falsetto too. And who better than him, especially dancing while singing, because him and Ralph Tresvant from New Edition, they are the exemplification of how to dance and sing at the same time and maintain your vocal control. Ain't too many guys that can do it the way they do it. And, meeting Donnie was crazy, because the first time we met, it was just like, hey. It felt like he knew me already, even though he didn't know anything about me. Actually, what Jimmy was telling him about me. So the thing is that He said, yo, Law's dope, you know, had that dude there. And, you know, and I'm just like, you know, so of course, me shooting my shot as a producer and a writer and as an artist, but, you know, that was on the back burner for later on. But I finally waited 25 something years to finally express what him and his Dorchester crew meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
The days that I would sit up trying to study that move that Jordan did in the solo part of Step by Step.
He's still doing it.
He's still doing it. I love it. That's my favorite part of the whole show, besides them doing the original choreography for the right stuff. So for me, it's nostalgic. I still have the VHS of Hanging Tough Live. I still have it. Mm-hmm. I still have, I had the music sheet books. When I started learning piano, I wanted to learn my basic chord structure. So I already knew what it was, but I couldn't name it. So my mother bought me a New Kids on the, I still have it. It's probably worth $gazillion at this point. They don't even make them anymore. Yeah. But I showed Donnie. He was like, wow, I don't even have that. So of course, as most people have seen, that relationship just grew and grew. You know, we see each other, and every now and then I'll be on Twitter and I would start dropping the facts and dropping a lot of stuff that most blockheads don't know. Because again, I'm different from the average blockhead because I'm an artist. Mm-hmm. I'm a musician. I know the history that most fans don't really know. Mm-hmm. And because I'm connected to some of the people who they grew up with. Donna Summer's family is close friends of mine. Mm-hmm. And as you know, they grew up around the corner from Donna Summer. Mm. They know all their nieces and nephews.
I actually didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know now. There's a lot of deeper stories. I'm not going to tell them here, but Danny, you know, when me and Danny started talking, he couldn't believe I knew the people that he knew in St. Vincent in Boston. He was like, oh, wow, how's she's doing? I'm like, you know, I said, yeah. I said, we've been best friends for 15 years. He's like, wow. So it made Danny smile. He's like, oh, man, those were the days. It made Danny go back. See what I mean? So our ties, excuse me, our ties are considerably close. Same thing with New Edition, because most of the guys that worked on their projects are mentors of mine. Mm-hmm. Dinky Bingham, who produced Hit Me Off, which is the #1 record for New Edition. Dinky Bingham is what I would call one of my musical uncles, because he was in a band called the Jamaica Boys, which is a super group featuring the great Marcus Miller, who is one of the greatest jazz, fusion, funk bass players that play with Miles Davis and all that great Luther Vandross stuff that you like. That's Marcus Miller. That's all the production. Never too much, and all the early stuff. Yeah, that's Marcus Miller on bass. Yeah. So see what I mean? That Marcus Miller, Mark Stevens, who is the younger brother of my #1 favorite female singer, Shaka Khan. That's whose family to meet to now. And Shaka's daughter, Indira, is one of my very best friends. Mm-hmm. See what I mean? See how the connection happens? Mm-hmm. But that's all connected through Dinky Bingham, who just happened to have a #1 record on New Edition. Not to mention Ray Parker Jr. wrote Mr. Telephone Man.
Oh, I didn't know either. Wow.
Yeah, matter of fact, New Edition was even the first ones to record. It was a guy called, I think his name was, I'm trying to remember his name, something with the last name Parker. I remember I first heard this years ago, and he was a reggae artist. He recorded it first, and it didn't really go anywhere. But the song went to who it was supposed to go to. New Edition. I don't think that song would have been perfect for anybody but New Edition. So the thing is that these are stories that people need to know about regarding the relationship between New Kids and New Edition, because first of all, it's Roxbury and Dorchester right around the corner from each other. The fact that some of the members went to the same school and hung in the same areas and stuff like that. It's a lot of history connecting links. So of course, a lot of Black fans didn't know this. So of course, you know, a lot of Black fans are like, "Ooh, these wannabe white New Edition motherfuckers." and it was not. That was a look. That was a true. And you gotta remember, there was no social media back then, so nobody really knew what was what until years later. So I'm glad to see that a lot of that has changed, because they finally learned the story. They finally know what kind of a man Donnie is, who always makes sure that people get their credit. And I can proudly say that as his little brother from Brooklyn, you know, on every level. I mean, he treats me like a big brother should. I think, you know, I have brothers, obviously I have a large family, so I know what that feels like. So it's not like I've been longing for a long lost bigger brother, but you can never have more than one. At least I know if something happens to me, you know, Donnie and especially Danny, they'll make some heads roll. So my thing is just that same thing with Bobby Brown and Ralph and Viv and all those guys. Like those are my big brothers for real. You seen all the photos of us hanging out and cracking jokes and them sharing my videos and stuff, and you know, and I didn't ask them to do any of that. Like the thing is that they do it because they do it from the heart. No one could tell me that my big brothers don't love me. So that relationship with me and Donnie just continued to grow and grow. And then, you know, we spoke about it. We would have these little chats and stuff. And then, you know, he agreed, said, you know, yeah, we definitely going to do that. But, you know, Donnie's time is Donnie's time. So that day when he brought me into, this is during the pandemic, this is the first year, he was going live a little bit more than usual. And he brought me into his live. I didn't even ask to be in the live. He just hit me up and just pressed and said, Donnie wants to sing. I'm like, oh, shoot, you want to talk to the people in front of the people? Okay. And that's when he announced, after he gave me my flowers, like I always give him his, you know, it almost made me damn near tear up just to hear my idol give me my flowers. Like, that's crazy. And then he said, so Law, you ready? When we go in the studio, what we gonna do? I looked at him like, I've been waiting on you, bro. I'm ready when you are. So now here we are, 2002, everybody, 2022. Everybody's been seeing, you know, they love when we get together. They love when we hanging out. They love when we joking around and at the show. Like that infamous clip now that probably would have went viral of me, my boy Flav, who some of y'all know, Flav, Eric B from Eric B and Rakim, my boy Tuffy from Video Music Box, and we're all on the side in Jersey at a New Edition concert doing the steps, adding harmony parts. Like, we're literally little kids. And to see Donnie, who's an icon himself, become that 14-year-old kid all over again, because you gotta remember, that's how New Kids got started. Donnie said that, I saw that template, I bought the Candy Girl album, and then how coincidentally that the guy who I would end up meeting is the producer of the record. So it led to a lot of different things. Shout out to the Maurice Starr, by the way, the genius known as Maurice Starr. But yeah, so in a nutshell, that's pretty much how me and Donnie's relationship has grown, and it continues to grown and get stronger by the day, man. That's my family on all pretense. Blood couldn't make us any closer. You know, sometimes I could be having the craziest day and he'll pop up out of nowhere. Yo, straight for tomorrow? You cool? Okay, I'm gonna see you. Make sure you come. Like that's what big brothers do. They make sure, and mind you, his schedule is crazy like mine, if not crazy.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that he makes time to hit me up or to know what I think about certain things. I remember he told one fan, it was so funny, because he's like, yeah, because, you know, Law's very bold in his statements. Y'all know that. I say a lot of shit. And yeah, I know. I mean, everybody knows that. It's no secret.
That's so funny.
But Donnie was like, that's Law. That's the Brooklyn truth. And Donnie said that shit. They couldn't really argue anymore. I'm like, well, that'll kind of put you in your place for a little bit, honey. I said, because we're grown men. It's not going to change anytime soon. Because me and Donnie think a lot alike. We're very similar. We have the same favorite cereal, which is Frosted Mini Wheats.
Oh, that's my favorite cereal.
Are you kidding me?
The brown sugar, the brown sugar ones.
Yeah, I love those ones too. Oh no, we had a thing. If you get a chance, did you see? I think I tagged you one. Did you see my thing from a couple of weeks ago? I started naming on my top 16 favorite basketball players, my top 16 favorite cereals, my top 16 favorite movies. I did a whole thing. When you get a chance, I'm gonna scroll down a little bit more. You'll see it right there in the middle. Because I want, because a lot of new fans who've been coming in and discovering me, you know, a la Blockhead, you know, community, and of course the P-Funk, and then of course my ties with Prince, because Morris Day is one of my very best friends too, the last 20, 30 something years. And a lot of people who have discovered my music and my artistry, they're learning more about me on the flip side of all that, besides the albums and the music and my history with some of these guys. But let me just make this note real quick. The thing which was so crazy is because way before there was any idea of me linking up with the New Kids, when I was on Twitter, a lot of the Blockhead community had already been embracing me, because I think one, I forgot her name. I can't, she's probably gone. I don't know where she is now, but this one girl had saw these tweets. I was, you know, because at that time, I remember, I'm self-marketing. I have no publicist. I'm marketing. I'm on Twitter. I'm just rambling. I'm typing what I feel about music, about politics, history. I'm building my whole shit. Yeah. So I started talking about music. Of course, what we going to talk about more than anything else, because I'm an artist with a lot of history. And I started giving an education on how group structures work. A lot of fans don't understand how groups actually work. So I gave them the real, because of my knowledge and me being in one, and then me knowing, you know, what it's like. And somebody just said, hey, Law, I heard you talking about groups. I'm just very curious. What is your take on New Kids on the Block? And I shook my head. I said, they're among my top 5 influences. And she was like, oh my God, you're not from here. You're out of this world. And then all of a sudden, she started telling a lot of her friends, hey, look, we got a male blockhead up here. And I understood what she meant, because let's keep it honest.
We're not used to it.
I know, no, not only that, but here's where it gets deeper when it comes to New Kids and New Edition. And matter of fact, all boy band and R&B male groups. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. While the other guys in my hood were hating, not all of them were, but a lot of them were. Mm-hmm. A lot of the hood boys were hating because, you know, of course, if you got a girl that you like and she's screaming for Ralph and John and Joey, you know, you're going to feel a certain way. But see, me and my brother and my cousins, because we was already notorious in our hood with the girls. So for me, I'm being honest. I mean, we were.
Yes.
We the Taylor boys. I mean, we didn't, this is before any type of record deal, industry, anything like that. That's why our confidence and our security, because we didn't go through that whole insecure phase of what if I'm not good looking enough, what if I'm not, because I started learning at 13, 14. When I started touring with my grandfather, I didn't realize that some of these girls like these nappy-headed boys from Albany Projects, Marcy Projects, St. Mark's Avenue. So that gave me a confidence at 13 that most kids on my age didn't have. But it all started when I went to go see New Edition and New Kids on the Block in concert during my formative years, because seeing the girls scream over them while all the other guys were hating, I was studying. You know why? Because I'm like, I want to make the girls scream for me like that. And wouldn't you know, I did my very first public school talent show singing New Edition's Lost in Love. And as soon as I hit that first line, and the girls in some of the other classes who didn't like me because I was a class clown and I did a lot of crazy shit in school, they screamed for me. This wasn't church. You know, church, you know, the court, they clap for you. It's like, that Lawrence can sing, that little boy can sing. I was getting all that stuff. Oh, he can dance, go do, hey, Lord, do that moonwalk, baby. Do that moonwalk. Now, you know, I don't like all that hip-hop stuff. No, you know how old aunties are. I ain't into all that hip-hop stuff, but you know, when you sing and do that Michael Jackson, you're gonna be somebody. So having your peers who are your age yell for you, especially when they're good-looking girls, especially if it's the one girl you actually liked and she didn't really gravitate towards you at that time. We're talking about 3rd, 4th grade. You know, back then it was, will you go out with me? That's yes or no. You know that.
Yeah.
So the thing is that it gave me more confidence, but it showed me that it was okay to be that guy. Because I didn't want to be in the guy in the audience who was hating. That's the worst kind of guy. Look, you're gonna laugh. I still see it now. Did you see that recent clip? I think it was one of the early shows where they had just got through doing Right Stuff. And there was a guy in the audience that was going like this because he was around, he was blockhead surrounded. And he was like, I want to say to, Donnie, I want to say to that guy right there covering your ears, trust and believe me. A lot of guys tried that for years and it didn't work and they went crazy. It's true. I was laughing my ass off because it's the truth. And the thing was just that for me, it gave me that. You know what I mean? So when people like, when the 90s came hard with Drew Hill, Silk, Boyz II Men, H-Town, High Five, and, and Troop and all those guys, every group of that caliber, all we did was watch videotapes. When they would come on Arsenio Hall, that's when Arsenio Hall was the gateway. If you want to learn the latest, I remember when Color Me Bad was on, when they did All for Love, because, and Color Me Bad, Mark was the best dancer. So the thing is that, because for people that don't know, Mark's brother did the choreography for Color Me Bad, his older brother.
Okay.
So Mark, and he's one of my favorite singers as well. But the thing is that they had this one routine that they did for All for Love. And thank God for, I still have my VHS player, believe it or not. I still have my VHS.
I'm
VCR
picturing this dance in my head as we speak. I can remember the video.
Like I know, I still have my VCR and all my VHS tapes. I still have them. I still have all of my archives. And I just remember that excitement of being a young student and knowing that if Boyz II Men or New Edition or anybody was going to be on the Arsenio Hall show, my mother, that's the only time that my mother would let me stay up late on the school night, because I have my VCR tape ready.
Yep.
Mind you, there was no DVD unless you only had 2 options if you wanted to learn from the best. Go to the show or make sure you had the VHS ready to record.
Yep.
And that's what trained everything. I mean, not just even with not just with hip hop and R&B, but even with rock groups. I have a DVD and a VHS of Kiss rehearsing without makeup.
Yeah.
Everybody don't have that. I have that.
I think it's safe for me to say that the Arsenio Hall show was the gateway for everything for me that became the music I loved. Everything was Arsenio all the time. Mariah Carey's first TV performance, where I fell in love with Mariah Carey's voice. Arsenio Hall. Everybody, Paula would go on there, you know, Madonna, Janet,
NWA and Snoop on there. That's 92, 93. So everybody. Again, it's just, and then when new kids wanted to make a statement, they knew where to go.
Yeah.
So the thing is that it's more of a reason why New Edition and New Kids on the Block are forever ingrained in the fabric of the Planet 12 sound, in addition to Prince, Stevie Wonder, Jimi Hendrix, and James Brown. I mean, even Bobby Brown as an individual. That's a whole other conversation on its own. It's, you know, for me, I'm the most happiest when any compliment is given to me. What I always try to do is I mix everything up into one pot of gumbo. So you're going to get that influence, you're going to get a whole bunch of other stuff. But I love when people say to me, yeah, man, you got that Bobby Brown New Edition in it. I saw some of them. I said, well, yeah, of course. I'm not like, you know, and when Biv comes on my thing, or he hits me up or texts me, or when Ralph calls me and be like, yo, that video you just did, I said, I was hoping you did. I said, I wanted you to see how we incorporated some of the other stuff. But I said, yeah, but you always put your own thing on it, man. That's what we love about you. And that's, to me, that is worth more than any platinum record or any Grammy that I would ever get in this music industry. I have the love and support of all of my heroes who are still living, even the ones who passed away, who I got a chance to meet and hang out with before they passed away. But the ones who are here now, who I looked up to, I mean, you know, when my older brother got a chance to hang out with Lionel Richie because he was in Vegas, and I gave him a pass and everything, he got to go. And he said, you got to understand something, Mr. Richie. He said, you know, my little brother would wake up singing Penny Lover, trying to walk like you, trying to do the things that you do in the video and stuff like that. So to see him doing shows with you and hanging out with him, it makes me proud as a big brother to see that come together. So see what I mean? Moments like that for me is what reminds me of why I never gave up, even though the odds were against me at each and every point in turn, especially being an independent artist, because that's not easy. As you know, it's not easy to have to navigate in the changes of the music industry. But that's why I always say, stay healthy, stay dehydrated, and stay focused and stay on top of your business so that you can be able to be healthy and win in this game on your own terms. And that's exactly what's been happening with me. So getting the support of Donnie and the rest of the crew and New Edition, man. Imagine my 8-year-old self, my 12-year-old self. I've been to every New Edition concert there was. So the thing is that I've been to every tour since I was a kid. So for me, it's like from being 8 years old and watching the Westbury Music Fair, and then to the Culture Tour with them and Jodeci and Charlie Wilson. It's just like full circle. It's crazy. And, you know, and I'm proud to call Ralph and Biv two of my closest friends, just like Danny, you know, just like Danny and Donnie. So it's like, you know, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
And knowing that going into the future that these collaborations are going to happen is really exciting. And now I want to tell everybody about what's coming out so that they can go and go listen, go embrace it. What do you have coming up?
Well, the first single off my upcoming political social album is called America's Inception. And that will be released this Friday.
Great.
And the crazy part of the name of the album is called Humanity 101 Pandemic Paradise Paradox.
Okay.
Definitely, without question, written during most of the pandemic. And the thing was that I wasn't even trying to go there, because the thing with me is that I've always been very outspoken in my views and things of that nature for those who've been following me long enough. And to much people's avail for them not to be in my page or to be like, okay, there's he go again. Because I tell people all the time, I don't rant, I do truths. See, ranting to me is some people that like to hear themselves talk. I'm not that guy. If I'm talking to you, I have something to say. Some people like to hear themselves talk because they want to sound important. I'm not that guy. So it finally hit me one day between my trip to Minneapolis and going to the Minneapolis graveyard, that's what they call it. And then of course with George Floyd and a lot of different scenarios, I decided it was time to finally do an album that would become my What's Going On. And in case people didn't recognize what I'm talking about, Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album, in my humble opinion, is the greatest R&B pop record and most relevant album in the history of music. Because everything he talked about in that album 40 something years ago, we're still dealing with now. Look at the third verse in, well, actually the fourth verse. The fourth verse in Inner City Blues. Crime is increasing, trigger happy policing.
Yep.
Don't look too far from what we're seeing now. Bills pile up, sky high, send that boy off to die. Money, we make it. Before we see it, you take it. It makes me want to holler the way they do my life. He's talking about the government. He's talking about the infrastructure of America. You know, and it's funny because everybody wants to sing what's going on, but they don't realize the whole flight of that album was a universal theory, but it was still rooted in the Black experience. That's why when people try to bring up the whole soldier thing and, oh, you should sell it. I had to block one fan not too long ago, which is crazy. You know, we're no longer fans. And I really don't, I'm at a point in my life where I don't need a whole lot of friends. And if me being oppressed benefits you or my people, if you don't see what we're seeing right now, we can't be friends. I just, it's unrealistic, because the thing is just that for me, I'm going to side with people of any color, Black, white, every orientation, straight, gay, it doesn't matter. We are all the common denominator, because they don't even like their own. These old white men who are in office, they don't even like their own kind of the people who are not like them. And see, I always tell people all the time, the people who don't care and be like, you should be grateful to live in this country. We have soldiers that fought on Independence Day. I said, do you know what Independence Day was for Black men in America and Black women in America? You know, do you think Donnie Wahlberg wears a Public Enemy shirt because it's fashionable? Hell no. Donnie knows. Donnie grew up in Boston, which a lot of racial tension in Boston was crazy.
Yeah.
And here's Donnie wearing a Public Enemy shirt because he knew what Chuck D was talking about. It was from a militant standpoint, but the truth was on all cylinders. So my thing is that I can't be in that position to stand still. You know, I figured, okay, I put the third album out. It's doing real good. You know, my usual Planet 12, funk, party, hip hop, you know, I love you, baby. Like that kind of stuff, songs that make sense. And then having fun with lyrical wordplay, like I like to do as a hip hop artist, and then going straight rock and roll. I said, you know what? It's time to make an album expressing my views. And especially because after I released this album, I am no longer talking about politics and social stuff on my social medias. Everything that I feel about the current state of the world and where we were even before is going to be all in this album. It's supposed to be an EP. EP's only 5 songs, but every time I looked on the news, I went back to the studio. I'm like, I got to talk about these things because I don't want anybody to be able to say I didn't care, that I wasn't informative, and that I didn't speak my piece. So the two main influences for that, again, was Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album and Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation album, which is basically her Marvin Gaye album. That's her What's Going On, because people don't realize Rhythm Nation was a bold step. It was a very bold step, considering that Control was such a huge album, and it's party, it's funky, it's spunky, it's not. And here she comes with this very dark but slamming ass concept. Yeah. People of the world today, are we looking for a better way of life? We are part of a Rhythm Nation. You know what I mean? Those lyrics, state of the world, knowledge. Yeah. You know, in between all the sexy, nice stuff that she did on that record, but the thing was, the message was clear. So this album is going to have 10 to 11 songs on it. And I just wrote from different perspectives. So you're going to hear, I mean, we got some funk on there, of course, some funk, some hip hop, some rock and roll. I'm also doing spoken word, because before I became an MC, I wrote poems. So for me, when the spoken word thing became popular during the mid 90s and even more so now than it's ever been, they finally have a genre, and they finally have a category on the Grammys. It's crazy. Like, I really know, I said, I'm gonna do some spoken word here. So one of my favorite songs on the album is called Politicians Are Not God.
Mm.
So yeah, it's a real deep one. It's very in your face. Yes, there is going to be some offensive language for people who are probably guessing. I'm letting it all out. I'm putting all of it on there. And I already made it clear, hey, I may even lose some fans, but that's what being an artist is all about. I'm not going to sit here and play nice in a world that's overturning, yes, pun intended, that's overturning by the day. And the thing is just that there has to be more knowledge spread about this. A lot of the fans, even some of the blockheads and aliens and for lifers, some of them don't know the truth about certain things concerning our government. I was a political science major. You know what I'm saying? So people don't know, like, I was a political science major, so I knew about politics at a thing. And as everybody mostly knows, I am the proud son of a Black Panther mother. My mother was in the Black Panthers in the New York City chapter. So this is, heavy, right? So this, for me, this is kind of like, a wheelhouse for me, but the truth needs to be spoken. So after that, when people start asking me, after the album comes out, 4 months later, we done did a run and everything, when people like, hey, Law, what do you feel about so-and-so? Buy the album. What do you feel about the president? Buy the album. That's going to tell you everything that you need to know about Law's social views and political views. When you put those things together, it equals humanity, even though that doesn't stand what it stands for. But you will see the humanity of a person when you know those two things about him, how they are socially and what they are like politically. Because it's a lot of things that bump heads. I mean, even the block. I mean, I'll talk about it now. Even the blockhead community, I've seen people go to war, and all I said to them is, while y'all sitting here battling back and forth on who's the better political party or who's the better president, guess what? They're all laughing at us. They get to go to their glass crystal palaces and live while we struggle and starve. And y'all sitting here arguing about who's fighting for us. None of the motherfuckers are fighting for us. None of them. None of them. And that's my opinion. It's not going to change. And I have the facts to back up certain things, because all you need to do is look at the timeline. See, a lot of people don't look at the timeline. Most people are part of political parties because my daddy was a Republican. My mom was a Republican. My mom was I'm being real with you. They don't know. Look, I promise you, if I put them on the firing line right now, the same way how me and you are talking face to face here right now, if I brought up some very key elements of political infrastructure, they wouldn't know a damn thing. You know what I mean? So I challenge my audience to certain things. So about, oh, well, that person just got shot because it's so, they're a good cop. I said, we never said they weren't good cop. I said, but I want you to do me a favor. Send me a sheet or send me a photo of 20 white people that have been killed by Black cops. And guess what? Nobody had any evidence. I said, the defense rests. I rest my case. There's your answer right there. If you don't see that there's a problem with this, if you don't see that, you're blind. And I ain't got time to be correcting your eyes. In the words of Amanda Seales, I'm on my trampoline. I don't have the time. That's why I said I want to do an album. I'm dropping a lot of knowledge on this album. Yeah, there's a lot of anger in it. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of sensitivity and uncertainty, because another song I have on the album is called Women, Guns, and Babies. Yeah, I'm going
it's deep. It's deep. And it's important. These are things that need to be said. And I'm glad.
Yeah, it's our future. So the first single, America's Inception, which is funky as hell, it definitely was influenced by the Beatles, Sly and the Family Stone, and Prince. So you'll hear those influences in that particular song. But it definitely, I wanted to be the first single because it got the most response. I put up on my SoundCloud. And people's like, oh yeah, I like this, Lord, I like the message too. We debuted it at the last sold out shows that I did, we debuted the song. So the reception pretty much, I'm like, okay, that tells me what I need to know right there. So the fact that I can do a song like that, speaking truth, and people want to hear it, and people like the groove too. I feel like this, we're gonna groove with Earth, Wind, and Fire. They're the perfect examples. Their grooves were intoxicating, but the message never lost. You're a shining star, no matter who you are, shining bright to see, Julie, baby. Shit is funky as hell, but the message is clear. Read the lyrics. A lot of people don't read the lyrics. Read the lyrics while you're jamming. Understand why Maurice White is a genius. Understand the late, great Maurice White. God bless his soul. You know,
Yeah.
I miss him. I miss him so much. You know, he understood the universal plane theory of music and art and religion and all those things combined. Look at all the Earth and Fire album covers.
Yeah.
Like he knew, he understood it, and he wrote from that perspective. He said, "We got a message for you, but if we don't have these dynamics, all those little musical breaks that we did, that's to get your attention because we got a message for you."
Mm-hmm.
That was it. So this is what this album feels like for me. If you like the beats, you like the harmonies and the way I do the thing on this record, that's the fun part of it. But the messages on this upcoming album, we you know, it is what it is. We're going in.
And the new one's out, the new song this Friday coming up.
Yes, it's Friday.
And
It's going to be all this others.
So when I say that, we were recording at the beginning of July. So this episode's still a little ways away, but that means everything should be out and ready to listen to by the time you've heard this episode.
True. This is true.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be remiss to be so extremely happy about it, because on a lot of different levels, any album I've ever made is a statement. You know, my first 3 albums are still doing well. So I know and hope that this one will too. I think it'll get to the people. I'll put it like this. I'll make it easier for the fans who listen to right now. If you want to hear the unapologetic raw truth about America, our government, and the society that we live in, the last 50 years, even going back a little bit further to 400 years, this is the album for you to listen to love, to groove on, but more importantly, get educated. If you don't agree with the things that I speak about, if you still want to hold on to this fantasy land of America and waving the flag and all this other stuff, and you still want to hold on to your political connections, like we say, protection for the collection, for the connection. Put that together. Say that 3 times. I know you can get that. Then this album is not for you, and I don't give a fuck if you don't buy it, if you don't listen to it. It's not for you. It's for people who want to grow and learn. The title song.
Teachable.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, there you go. Say it again. Exactly. Stay teachable. You know, the entire people in the name of all of my heroes who died. Of course, it's dedicated to Eric Gardner and George Floyd and Sandra Bland. You know, like all the people who we lost and the fight of these struggles that continue to daunt. And when people wonder why my #1 favorite rap song of all time is "Fuck the Police," it's because the statement that was made, not because all police aren't bad. I mean, that's like no shit Sherlock moment. Of course we know all police ain't bad, but we're talking about the infrastructure of the police, how it was created. See, I put that post up on my Twitter. I put it up on my Facebook for people who want to learn. I want to show them. This is not hearsay. This is not photocopy. This is actual documented proof. You gotta remember, if I wasn't doing music, I'd be a journalist, because I was, you know, that was my major in college. So the information and source that I get is from the source. I don't do hearsay and gossip. Yeah. For people who want to remain teachable, like you said, but for people who just want to learn and finally understand why a Black man like myself has to speak on these things, and why we have to tell certain people, no, it's not okay for you to say that. It's not okay for you to touch my wife or my girlfriend's hair. It's not, you know, certain thing, because people don't understand the connotation behind that, because they're projected in white privilege and all those things that come along with it. And you say that to them, it's like, what do you mean privilege? I work hard for what I got. I'm like, that's not
you're not understanding what
you're not understanding what. And I took time to mind you, there were some fans that actually hit me up in the DMs that really wanted to know. And I could feel their sincerity. That's why I gave them the answer. I'm like, said, no, Lord, no bullshit. I'm a fan of yours. I love and I'm hearing you, but I need to know, what is white? I really don't know what that means, because me being white. And I broke it down to her, and I made it very clear. I even sent her links, examples of other people's perspective from the Black experience, to let them know, because they have a better definition than me sometimes. Some people have a more shorter definition, like this is what white people, they have a more diagram and visual, and I give that to them.
I've had an experience where I had to be and remain and be teachable, because I remember when the Chappelle Show came out, right? So around that time, there was a large white audience for the Chappelle Show, and me being a white person, I'm enjoying the jokes and the comedy, but I'm not understanding what they truly mean to Black people. So at the time, I'm making some of these jokes with Black friends and not realizing that that's not my place to say. You know what I mean? So that was teachable for me as a white person, to realize that That's, you know, those kind of jokes, like you got to be really thoughtful about the things you say. And that's something that I've always been teachable about and apologetic for at that
But the
time.
thing is that, but here's the thing. But here's the thing about you, and I love you for this so much. Besides your amazing personality and the podcast to go along with it, the thing I love about your energy and what I get through here is because you were willing. See the difference?
Yeah.
When you're willing to admit that you didn't know. Now, mind you, keep in mind, with most of my white friends who I'm close to, they can say the Chappelle jokes because we all say them anyway. But the thing is that the ones who got common sense, and sometimes some sense is just not that common, unfortunately. True. Some people don't know. But the thing is that it's up to me to correct them, let them know, okay, yeah, I don't have to say this to you, but you'll know. But then when I say it, they know where it's coming from. It's like the same way when I talk about white people, my white fans don't get offended. They start laughing with me. I'm like, now y'all know that everybody knows that when I stereotype, I'm joking. I'm not, this is not in any way, even though, but you know, you got a point. I said, well, that's why the joke is the joke, because basically there is a truth to this. Don't get it wrong. But the thing is that I'm not looking at it like, yeah, you know, because these white people know. I said, no, that's not how I think. It's simply because that we can be in a room with each other and have these discussions and these dialogues and understanding and why these are things, especially for me as a Black man, because you got to remember, they're profiting off of the experience. That's why I have to tell people the difference between culture appropriation and culture appreciation. Yeah. And I will be the one to tell you who's the appropriator and who's the appreciator. I've been in this industry long enough on a musical level to tell you who is who. Just recently, I had to get some folks together about Elvis, because it's long-standing rumor, and then when it was a rumor, Elvis was not a racist. Elvis studied and was mentored by Black blues and gospel artists personally, not at home watching TV. He was raised under that in Memphis. He was the only white kid singing in church. Sounds familiar? Eminem, the only white kid in 7 8 Mile that had an all-Black crew. Vanilla Ice, the only kid in Texas that hung around an all-Black crew. See what I mean? It's no different. So the thing is that the parallel lines have been discussed. They had a big discussion. I was like, Jackie Wilson is Elvis's idol. Elvis studied him. Elvis and Jackie Wilson were great friends over the years. Matter of fact, when Jackie got into a coma in 75, Elvis paid for all his hospital bills. See what I mean? Like they don't talk about this stuff, because the thing is that we got plagued with so much misinformation that people had these theories. And then, Chuck D's my big brother. I love him. Sorry, Chuck. Even though he put out this statement in Fight the Power, I understood the vitality of it, because it's a wrong statement, because he wasn't racist. But the thing is, what he said after that was the most important thing. John Wayne, who was a racist, without question, I learned that. That's why Faye said, motherfuck him and John Wayne, because I'm Black and I'm proud, I'm ready, I'm hyped because I'm amped. Most of my heroes don't appear on no stamp. That was the realest shit ever said. And if you look today, when Marvin Gaye got his stamp 5 years ago, I was there because I'm close to the family. Norna and Jana, two of my best friends as well. And to see Marvin Gaye get his own stamp for the U.S. Post Office, I damn near almost shed a tear. I'm like, he's not here physically to watch it, but I know he can see this in heaven. Like, who would have ever thought that Marvin Gaye would get on the stamp? And we have a lot of heroes. Jimi Hendrix is on the stamp. So it's deeper than just the infrastructure of America. This is why certain things are being put into place, and everything just can't be, this kumbaya and everything. Sometimes you just hear hardcore truth to understand why we speak on these things. No, we're not angry. We're mad as hell. It's a difference, because the thing is just that there are so many different things that a lot of white folks and even some other races don't get either when I speak on this, because Humanity, my album, it's about all of us. The song Humanity is about us standing together, Black or white, straight or gay. It's about us standing together and fighting against a government that does not care about us. But the rest of the album is a little bit of the humanity side of it, where it includes all, but then of course, the Black perspective, which is the main perspective, because me as a Black man, I have to talk about these things to my audience, and even my white audience too. It's not just, but I make music because I don't make music for Black people. I make music for everybody. It just so happens that I'm a Black artist. but I make my music for everybody. If you love funky beats, if you love hip hop, rock and roll, jazz, and classical and country music like I do, my albums on all levels are for you. It's for the audience. So thank you for saying that, because I really hope that people get the message behind this album, and hopefully I won't lose a whole bunch of fans. I always say, if I lose you that quickly, you were never a fan to begin with, or you just don't really want to hear the truth being spoken, which is the latter for me always. But the people who stuck with me,
case. Yeah,
right. So people that stuck with me and they kind of know, they rocking with me. People are really looking forward to it. They heard the 3 songs I put up on SoundCloud. They were like, man, I can't wait for that. I said, yeah, man, it's coming. We almost done with the mixes and everything like that. It's coming together really, really nice. So until then, I'm gonna put out 2 or 3 singles in a row, and then we're gonna announce the date for the release of the official album. It's gonna be available on all digital outlets everywhere.
I am so excited and so grateful to that we had this chat today. Such a good time,
Amazing.
and
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just being able to talk about all types of things was incredible. So
it's just, let me just think.
Can't wait to get the new music.
Once again. No, absolutely. I mean, let me just make this clear again. Your podcast is the name, is what is needed. That's why like I told you, the first time I couldn't wait. I followed you immediately. I'm like, I didn't even wait for it. I said, this is the kind of podcast I love to go on, because we get to talk about the fundamentals of our 80s and 90s pop culture on all cylinders, from movies to TV. And people be so shocked and surprised that I was a fan of Beverly Hills 90210. I said, you kidding me? I said, Brenda could get it. You kidding me? I was kidding. Look. This is no surprise to nobody. My first white girl crushes were Jane Whelan and Belinda Carlisle from the Go-Go's. And those are my friends now.
Oh, the Go-Go's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are my first white girl crushes, because for one, I was already a diehard Go-Go's fan. And keep in mind, my sister was the only Black girl going to an all-valley school in California. So when she brought home the Beauty and the Beat record, it changed my world forever. Because up until with the exception of Sheila E., I never saw female musicians. So the Go-Go's were actually my first, and then of course Climax, because I always call Climax the Black Go-Go's, because basically the Climax were to R&B girl band wise what the Go-Go's was into rock and roll. So it's the same type of attitude. But the thing is that Climax can play some rock too. They rock their asses off as well. So yeah. So how funny is that? I went from crushing on 2 of the members, studying them as a musician, because Charlie Cap, the guitar player, was influenced. Gina Shock is one of the deadliest drummers that can outdrum all the guys. She's a beast. She's
been on the show. What an honor. Yeah.
Oh, she was on the show? Oh, wow.
Gina was on the show, yeah.
Oh my God. I gotta get on my podcast. See, Gina is let me say how she would say it. Gina Shock is the motherfucking truth, period. Be more in the house. Like I love her attitude. I love her whole spunk. And again, that woman has been through surgeries and all kind of stuff. And that woman can still get up there and beat out. And I said, I will put my money on Gina Shock against any one of these dudes. Gina will wipe the fucking floor with them. So to go from being being fans and being fans of them and studying them and crushing on Belinda and Jane, to now them being my homies for the last 10, 15 years now, it's pretty intense, and usually I'm like the only Black Go-Go fan in the first or second row. I love it. They looking at me like, wow, he knows all the words. I'm like, yeah, stop stereotyping me. Enjoy the show. Shut the fuck up.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, this will probably be out in about a month. And then we'll be plugging it, and we'll be putting it all over the social media and tagging you and everything.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd love to stay in touch too, because I think of you as a friend now. So
I'm here. I'm way ahead of you. Absolutely. Make sure I get your information when it's over. Absolutely.
Sounds good.
I want to hear more. I want to hear more about this band. Are you still in that band, or was that something?
I entered the band shortly before the pandemic, but it was like a pop rock. Hard rock. I was a hard rock singer for very many years.
What, Pat Benatar style?
Kinda, yeah. Kinda.
Pat Benatar, Don't let me start naming names, because you know I'm a diehard Runaways fan too. So
I had that. Well, I had that rasp, which is fun.
no,
I
no,
love the rasp.
well, that Patti Smith. Come on now, look.
Yeah.
We can have these conversations because I
Mhm.
know exactly what you're aiming for. Me, one of my very best friends is Rosanna Arquette, so you know,
Cool.
and her best friend is Christy Hine, who's one of my heroes too.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's why
Pretenders.
that's why I said it's deep, because me and Rosanna, you know, that's my heart. Her and her daughter Zoe, those are my heartbeats right there. Love them.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah, this was great. This is one of the best
Yeah.
interviews I've ever done. I thank you so much. I love it. Thank you.
I'm glad you
So make
felt
sure I
that
get
way.
your information. Make sure I get your information for real. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll keep in touch with you.
Absolutely. I'm here. Thank you so much, love. Appreciate you.
You too. Thank
All right.
you.
Speak to you soon. All right.
Bye.
Take care, love.
You too.